What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Make It Kustom. I'm Carl Fisher. We've got lots to go over. We're working back on the Model A. We've got tools to show you guys, these bead forming sets I'm super excited about, and we're gonna get back on the Firewall that we designed this bead forming setup for. So don't forget to like, click, subscribe, hit notifications. Let's do some metalworking. All right, so what's the objective of this video? The objective is to get that firewall welded up and the distributor cove put in there. So like basically complete this firewall. That was a major question in the comments, was how to get rid of all these 1/4-inch holes that we've put in there. So I've got a technique that I like to use. It's relatively easy. It involves using a backer on the back side and a little bit of a hammer technique to stretch that little spot back out and try and keep the panel super flat. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. The other thing is that the bead itself makes it extremely strong, and all of these are right next to a strong area. So I don't think that we're gonna have too much trouble welding up all those holes. We definitely have a little bit more work to do on the power hammer with the distributor cove. We're also gonna turn the flange on that. And just a big heads up, thank you everybody for all your participation and feedback in the comments of our bead forming idea. This obviously is not a new thing, right? People have been making bead forms for a very long time. Flow forming is alive and well. Like, I did not invent this stuff. But I personally have never seen the 1/4-inch plate plasma cut forms be made like this, and I think it works really well. And I like the idea of it is reusable. You can share these forms with your friends. You can use them multiple times. They bolt on and off. And to answer some of the questions about, do I think it will actually work mid-air? Like if I was saying like, oh, if you wanted to punch one in a firewall, you probably could. I would like to try that when the time comes, or maybe we can simulate it somehow. But I also think that for sure it will work, especially if you have, say you were doing a floor pan, if you put some wood underneath the floor pan and had a, something solid for the form to hit against, that's gonna help it, right? Same thing if you're gonna do it midair on a firewall. Maybe you have a buddy on the other side just holding a sandbag to absorb some of that load so it's not stressing out the rest of the firewall. I think it's gonna work. But anyway, all these forming sets, we've got X's, T's, beads, 90s, 120s, and curves. They're all in sets of 3 and 6 on the website. There's like a master set price. We're trying to price these so that it's just like plasma cutting, right? Like we're plasma cutting and packaging it. The other thing is that as soon as you hit 150 bucks on the website, it goes to free shipping. This stuff is all very heavy, right? So what we're doing is we're going to allow that to keep happening. So most of these sets will be free shipping, if not all. Like the only time it wouldn't be free shipping is if you like only bought like just one small one and it wasn't enough. But we're going to incorporate that so that like when you are buying it, you don't have to worry about a massive heavy freight charge. We're going to kind of work it into what the sets are going to cost. So you don't have to be afraid of shipping heavy items. If you want this stuff, by all means, we are going to, like, I encourage everybody to do this on your own. You can make these sets. You could make them with a grinder and a drill press. And drill bits in just time. You could absolutely do that. The other thing we're going to do is we'll have the DXF files available on the website as well. If you would like to purchase the DXF files, you're more than welcome to. The other thing is that we have Patreon. If you don't know what that is, patreon.com, you can sign up, and basically you'll get all of our content there with 0 ads. So if you don't pay for YouTube, this is way cheaper than paying for YouTube, and there's 0 ads. Also, we give away the DXF files on there if you're a member, right? So you pay like $4 a month, and then you get the DXF files if you're interested in building tools, or if you know of somebody locally that has a CNC place and can cut you these things. Self-promotion, that's what we're doing right now. And we are having a Black Friday sale, so check that out on the website if you're looking for Christmas gifts or whatever. 10% off store-wide. And yeah, really big thank you to everybody that's participated in this. I think it's going to be a really fun idea. I'm going to use it lots, and we're going to elaborate on it as well. We are making the forming tool itself also. It's in production already, so that'll be on the website for pre-order, but I think that by the time this video drops, or within a couple weeks anyway, we will have stock of those things. I've ordered them. They're just in progress right now. Our forming head is S7 tool steel, same stuff that like power hammer dies are made of, like very high quality. They get machined out of S7, then they get heat treated, then they get remachined. So they're actually quite beautiful, and they have a set screw with an interchangeable machined Delrin head that you will get a few extra heads with it when you order one, or you can buy replacements on the website as well. And anyway, super stoked. I'm going to shut up about that now. Let's get to work. I'm going to pull out the form for us, or the buck, to check how our distributor shape is coming along. And we're just going to keep working on that, and then we're going to get that firewall finished and show you guys how to weld up the holes in the firewall, and that it really is not a big deal. Like a 110 MIG welder is all you need, and a little trick that we're going to go over in the rest of the video. Okay, so there's our form, and here's our piece. Now when we look underneath, you can see that it's not touching at the front. You can also see that the front is kind of pulled up. So what needs to happen is I need to do some shrinking in here to bring this in, and by this triangle of a shrink happening here, it should bring this down, like kind of closer, like it's gonna pinch here and bring that tip in closer, which is I think what needs to happen. So yeah, gonna hop on the old power hammer. Which one should I use? Should I use I'm gonna use the old Shape-O-Matic since we got that thing hooked up. We had a class here last weekend, and just shout out to everybody that came to the class. We had just an epic group of guys, and it went really well, I think. So we're gonna continuously try and improve on the class, doing basic metal shaping. We end up doing like curved flanges and bead forming and power hammer work, and shrinking stump work, sandbag, English wheel, bead roller. Like, we cover a lot of information. And anyway, it worked out awesome. So thanks everybody for attending that. And if you're interested in more of those, dates are coming up. I'm gonna be dropping them on japhandskustoms.com, and you can be on their mailing list, so you'll be kind of the first to know. Same thing with our Patreon people. I'm gonna shut up. I'm talking a lot this video. Let's get to work. All right, well, this piece turned out decent. We're kind of getting there. I'm about ready to turn the flange. I'm just going to use the bead roller here. This is a sharp upper die, tipping die, and then just a flat lower. I'm just going to put some pressure on it and run it through. Should probably plug it in. Might help. I expect I'm going to have to stretch this flange as I'm doing this. So my first pass is just going to be kind of digging the sharp die into my line, this tipping wheel. So it kind of just scribes almost a line. And then we know that the fold will be right there. So I'm not adding any pressure yet. When we start actually tipping, I'll add a little bit of pressure on the one side to actually start the bend. But right now I'm just trying to follow my line. I like to get low, like really low, and look right in there anytime I'm using a bead roller, just because then you can actually see the contact point. You know, if you steer from above, you can't really see it, so I always end up getting a sore back and just getting low. So now I'm adding just a little bit of pressure up on the outside here to start tipping that flange. Take your time with this. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a bunch of different passes. Can already see a little bit starting there. If you've got like a foot operated shrinker, stretcher, this is a good spot for that. Use the stretching die. We made a little linear stretch specific air hammer tool in one of the videos, and super easy to make, and so that's probably what I'm going to end up using. It just leaves a nicer finish. Show you guys that. So this little guy right here, it's just a piece of 1/2-inch plate and then a planishing hammer head. This was a Princess Auto find. I think they were like 15 or 16 bucks. I'd polished the end of that, and then I also polished this, and so it's just gonna pinch the edge, and it's gonna stretch it by hammering it. It's a little bit tight. So what this does is linear stretching. So if I put the flange in here perpendicular to the tool, it's hammering a flat upper die on a curved lower die, thus stretching outwards, like linearly. So we're not going to need that in this flat area. That would hurt us, actually. So what we need to do is we need to linear stretch this curved area to give it a little bit more surface area so that it can come around. So I'm just going to kind of creep up on it. I don't want to go too hard, too fast. Do you see how much it's tipping it? You see that? It's not really taking very much time. I could definitely go harder on it. All right, we are getting somewhere. This is fitting really nicely. We turned that flange. We used that stretcher tool. There is a video on making that tool if you guys want to make that. I feel like you could make it out of scrap that you've got around the shop. Works really, really good. No special hardened dies or anything. Like, it doesn't need to be special. Like, just make one. They work really nice. I did tune it up a little bit. You can see kind of some of the shrinker stretcher or the shrinker jaws that I was just trying to get this to lay nice and flat. This takes a little bit of time to get that to be totally flat. A little bit of shrink or a little bit of stretch, and you can get it nice and flat. So I did throw it back in the planishing hammer one more time just to get that burnished look. This thing really does work well. Not trying to toot my own horn, but I think that's one of the lesser expensive hoop hammers on there, and we take very good care in how the dies are made. They are S7 60 Rockwell, like really nice dies. 4,500 beat per minute hammer, comes with everything you need. They're on the website. They're also going to be 10% off for the Black Friday sale, Cyber Monday sale. Okay, so my next step is I'm going to clean this up. It got a little bit rusty sitting around the shop, so I'm going to clean up the firewall, and I guess we're going to move on to filling these holes. Let's fill these holes next. We're going to move on to the firewall, fill the holes, test fit the firewall, get that in there, and then start fitting our distributor cove. All right, so cleaned up the firewall a little bit and ground the back side nice and flush so that there's no burr on the back. That is important for what we're about to do. So to fill these holes up, I like to use a little copper spoon. This is a piece of copper flat bar that's just kind of ground. It doesn't need to be a piece of flat bar. It can be plate. It can be a solid chunk, whatever. Also, aluminum works as well. Like, you don't need to get copper. I find copper's a little bit nicer than aluminum, but they both work, and I've used them both. So aluminum's cheaper, obviously, than buying copper if you don't have scrap laying around. So what we're gonna do is hold that copper on the backside and then just MIG that weld in there, fill it up, and it's just gonna create like a nice little dot of weld, and that's about it. The beauty of this being conductive is that you can be arcing on that and sort of just filling in your weld, and then you'll see it kind of grab the whole outside of it, and that's it. Like, we just grind the top of it off, and maybe we give a little bit of a stretch with just a hammer. If there's any distortion, we can just kind of hammer our little weld after we grind off any excess, and we should be able to fill all the welds and have it stay nice and flat. That's what we're gonna do. So before I put in the distributor cove, I think we're gonna do this now. It just makes more sense to be able to hammer any of the welds on something flat. If I have the distributor cove in there already, it won't be that good. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I hear people talk about these two, like just using a copper backer kind of soaks up some of the heat also. Like, it seems like our heat lines are pretty minimal. Okay, so we are welded up. We are ground down just to 80 grit. I always keep like a super tiny roll lock, like for this situation. I just cut down one of the used ones, use the center. I can get into tighter corners. What does the backside look like? So there's just a little bit protruding out the backside depending on how tightly that piece of copper, wherever it is, was held on the backside. You can see what happens to the end. It kind of arcs a little bit, but it stays relatively smooth. So it's not like building up with, a bunch of debris, so that, yeah, you can just keep using it. So the backside, I'm gonna give it a little bit of a grind also. Just take any of the high spots off. Okay, well, this thing is, I'm gonna say pretty flat, but it has a little bit of a an oil can in it. Now that is because each one of these did a little bit of a heat shrink. Tiny heat shrink, tiny heat shrink, tiny heat shrink. So all of those little spots could use just a little bit of stretch. So I know we MIG welded this. A lot of people want to see TIG welding for everything like that, but I find that MIG welding works fine because you're really not hitting it very much. Like, we're gonna stretch it just for a couple hammer hits on each one of these and try and take any of that oil can out. And then I think we're, you know, ready to cut in the distributor cove. Okay, seems like there's a tiny bit maybe. I don't know. I mean, we're cutting this whole thing up anyway, so I say we're doing pretty good. It looks nice and flat. So I guess I'm gonna stick this in the car now, kind of mock it up, I guess, and then start fitting this piece to the backside. All right, so I am pretty much ready to start tacking this together. Everything's cut and trimmed. We've got everything lined up pretty good. What I'm gonna do is I'm probably gonna start tacking in the center here and then just kind of work my way both ways. Each tack, I might give it like, because what's happening when you're tacking, right? It's basically like little heat shrinks. So if you've ever done this, MIG welding, TIG welding, doesn't matter. When you start tacking, it makes you, like, you think you want to jump your tack from here to here and like wherever it lines up good to tack that way. It's actually not the best way to tack. You want to tack all in one direction, right? You could tack here and go all the way around that way also, but it gives yourself two ways, like two tries at getting it perfect if you start in the center and just kind of work that way. Basically, you want to tack and then tack right next to it and tack right next to it. Those are all going to want to close up. Like, they're going to want to shrink when they cool down, and then your metal wants to overlap. But what you do is you just stretch the tack out before you make the next tack. So basically, you tack weld it with a MIG or a TIG or whatever, and it wants to pull your metal together. Well, you hammer the tack and it lets your metal go back out so that you can keep tacking. That's how I'm gonna do this, tack all the way around. Once it's tacked and hammered back flat, like you wanna finish tacking and you wanna make sure everything's flat again. Why? Because you wanna make sure that there's no other variables in the panel so that after you finish welding, you know that the only thing you did was weld it. There wasn't anything else to consider, right? You keep it flat as you go, then you know that whatever you're doing is the only thing that needs to be undone. In our case, we're gonna weld it fully, one way, like one end to the other, try and not even stop at all, so that we have a nice even heat signature throughout, so that it heats up evenly, cools down evenly, warps evenly, but basically we know that we've shrunk right on the weld, so right at the weld and just the little bit of metal around the weld, that needs to be stretched back out. So we'll go to a flat dolly like this thing, and we'll hammer just the weld, and it should relax it back to flat again. That is what I'm about to do. Okay? Okay. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Make It Kustom, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. I'm stoked with the firewall, how it's fitting, the distributor cove. Very, very nice. Next step is to get that all welded in. Hopefully you kind of picked up a couple tricks on just filling holes like that. If you're gonna use a flow forming type situation, hammer forming situation, whatever, to be able to weld those holes up, use a bit of a backer, suck some of the heat out of it, and gives you something to weld against so that you're not building up too much weld. And anyway, a little bit of copper or a little bit of aluminum works great for that. Our flow forming kits are on the site. They're available now. We can ship those out as soon as you get them. We are going to be waiting for a couple of weeks on the flow forming bits themselves, so those will be on a pre-sale. But yeah, 10% off the entire website. Most of these flow forming kits will be free shipping within continental US and Canada. Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Bye.